Tell me when you go live. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 30th Annual General Meeting of the Radio Amateurs of Canada. My name is Phil McBride, Victor Alpha 3, Quebec Romeo. I'm the president of RAC, and I'm happy to be here in Halifax, Nova Scotia on their 90th anniversary. We are welcoming people from across the country via YouTube today. So what we're going to do is we're going to pass around in the room here, physically, a piece of paper. If you are a RAC member, please write down your name and your call sign. Miss Secretary Mass here has it. If you are a guest, please write in a different column that you are a guest, just so that we know you are here. But for purposes of record keeping and voting, we need to know the RAC members that are here. If you are joining us on YouTube, I would please ask that you go to the chat and you enter your full name and your call sign and just indicate that you are a member, and we'll use that to add to the secretary role as we go. As we do motions, I'll call for votes inside the building here, and I will also post YouTube polls. The poll will just say motion on the floor, and there will be an aye and a nay. I'll just ask for people to vote aye or nay. And then that's how we're going to do this. The annual general meeting is a fairly simple thing, but we'll move on from here. Next slide, please. You can advance to the next slide because I'm already ahead of you. That's my fault. I would like now to ask everyone to please observe a moment of silence for the silent keys that we've lost over the last year. Thank you. 2 slides ahead. I would like to introduce the members of the Radio Amateurs of Canada Board and Executive who are here today. Next slide. Every 2 years, RAC gets together. We get all of our people together into a room so we can have our planning sessions. We missed the one 2 years ago due to COVID, but I'd like to acknowledge if everyone who is with RAC could please stand up. These are the people who run Radio Amateurs of Canada, our board and executive, and I thank you very much, all of you, for taking the time to come to Halifax and help us get this done. Thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the business meeting that we are required to do to maintain our corporate status as a federal not-for-profit. We're going to go through the items. There are no bylaw changes or anything of the sort. This is simply just the business meeting. So the first motion that I'm going to ask for is one for the approval of the minutes from the last AGM. If you go to the next slide, I would ask that you, next slide. If you could please zoom in on the top, I will go over them quickly. The meeting was opened at 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time by myself. It was a virtual meeting held by Zoom, and 108 RAC members were in attendance. I requested a moment of silence for our silent keys during the past year. I gave a president's report, and it appears in the issue of TCA that immediately followed the AGM. I requested a motion that the minutes of the last meeting be approved. A motion was carried. Margaret Tidman, our treasurer, presented the audited financial statements for the year ending December 31, 2021. They indicate that we finished the year with a surplus and that we were on sound financial ground. Questions were posed and answered. A motion was made and seconded to approve the financial report as it was presented, which was carried. I then requested a motion to retain the services of Baker Tilly, the auditors, to complete our audit for the year ending December 31, 2022. It was moved and seconded, and it was carried. If you could please move down. The final motion was a motion to appoint Baker Tilly. No, that's it. The meeting was adjourned at 4:27 p.m. and it was carried, and a Q&A session appeared afterwards. If you can go to the next slide, please. So at this time, I would like to entertain a motion from the membership to to adopt the minutes of the previous AGM as presented. If I could have someone from the membership make a motion. Barry Brousseau, Victor Echo 3, Sierra Lima Delta. And if I could have a seconder in, I got Brian, Victor Alpha 1, Charlie Charlie. If you'll just give me one moment, please, because I have to do some things on my computer. For those of you online, there's a motion on the floor. Please make your vote. Everyone in here, all in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed, if any? Here, the motion was carried unanimously. I will let the poll go for another 10 seconds online. It'd be great if I had Jeopardy music for this. That would have been a better idea. There you go. Poll ended. 11 votes yes, 0 votes no. The motion carried. Thank you very much. If we can move to the next slide, please. And now it's time for me to give you my annual report to the membership. À cause mes compétences limitées en français, je ne ferai ce discours qu'en anglais. Néanmoins, ce rapport sera disponible en français dans les numéros de novembre et décembre de TCA et aussi sur le site web de RAC. Every year at the annual general meeting, the president of RAC is required to give a report to the membership on the state of the corporation, that detail the activities and ventures of the previous year, and to provide an outlook on the future. Today, as we celebrate RAC's 30th anniversary, I'm happy to report that we've had a fantastic year and that the future looks bright. I come to you from Halifax, Nova Scotia, where RAC is holding this meeting, our conference, and our biennial planning meetings in conjunction with the Halifax Amateur Radio Club's celebration of 90 years of continuous operation. This milestone, as well as similar ones of other clubs from across Canada, continue to prove the longevity of amateur radio as a hobby and as a service. RAC currently has a full slate of executive officers and directors. Our newest addition being Craig Delmage, Victor Echo 3 Oscar Papa, who was elected Ontario Northeast Director on August 4th. We welcome him to the team, and we thank those that also ran and showed an interest in these important positions within the organization. Our membership stands at approximately 3,400, with 16% of those being Maple Leaf operators. Maple Leaf operator membership has increased 66% over the last 5 years. That said, we estimate that only 5.6% of Canadian radio amateurs are members in their national society, something that we are anxious to increase over the next 2 years. Although there was a sharp but understandable decline in affiliated club membership during the pandemic, we have seen those numbers come back to 152 active affiliated clubs. RAC was forced to cease mailing renewal minders at the onset of the pandemic in 2020. As things began to return to normal, it was decided that we wouldn't restart this practice due to the price of postage and materials. In an attempt to reduce membership churn, RAC's information technology team has implemented the ability of members to enable automatic recurring renewals on their credit card. I encourage members to take advantage of this feature to ensure that you won't miss a renewal again. Later on in this meeting, RAC's treasurer, Margaret Tidman, Victor Echo 3, Victor X-Ray November, will present the 2022 audited financial statements to show that RAC stands on solid financial ground with adequate reserves to weather whatever storms may come our way. RAC made the difficult decision to separate our corporate and alias email systems in the spring. All call sign at rac.ca aliases were migrated to the myrac.ca domain. Now, upon completion of that project, RAC implemented Google Workspace as our corporate cloud services platform. The tools inherent to the platform allow our staff and volunteers to work collaboratively from anywhere in Canada or from around the world, and we are able to more efficiently and securely store, manage, and back up our data. We are also able to more reliably communicate securely via email with the government ministries, agencies, and non-governmental organizations we deal with on a daily basis. RAC is continuing to offer the basic and advanced certification courses via telepresence. In 2022, RAC has had 531 people attend 3 basic courses and 160 people attend 4 advanced courses. Thus far this year, in 2023, we've seen 320 people attend 2 basic courses, with 50 people on the waiting list for the 3rd, which is scheduled to begin in late September. There have been 2 advanced courses with 75 people attending, and another 2 beginning shortly with 20 people already signed up. Unlike most other national societies, RAC's interface with our regulator is not a political one. RAC sits on the Canadian Amateur Radio Advisory Board, or CARIB, with Industry, Science and Economic Development Canada, which we know as ICID, the federal agency responsible for spectrum management and regulation. This unique medium allows for regular 2-way discussions directly with policy staff about the amateur radio service. The latest CARIB meeting was held on June 27th with Dave Goodwin, Victor Echo 3 Kilo Golf, acting as chair. We presented the results of our recent Canadian call sign policy survey, as well as a list of recommended changes to RIC 9, the document that governs call sign policy in Canada. One of the reasons RAC is so effective as an advocate for our spectrum is our participation in regulatory events at the international level. This year, RAC Special Advisor Paul Coverdale, Victor Echo 3 India Charlie Victor, will attend the World Radio Communications Conference, WRC 23, in Dubai from November 20th through December 15th. Attending such meetings as this are vital in the defense of our spectrum. To that end, RAC maintains the Defense of Amateur Radio Fund, also known as DARF, for the sole purpose of sending a representative to the World Radio Communication Conferences every 4 years. With the rising cost of travel, we ask for donations to this critically important fund to ensure that we can maintain a presence at the international table. There has been a great deal of activity on the community services file thus far. We implemented the practice of appointing rather than electing section managers at the beginning of this year. The Board of Directors also struck the National Field Organization Advisory Committee as a standing committee of the organization in late 2022. We have managed to find several highly qualified volunteers to begin to fill some of these new roles within the organization at the section and the national levels, but we are in need of more. We continue to develop the Auxiliary Communications Service of Canada, or ACS, at the national level. In partnership with CFAL York University, which is an organization belonging to the United Nations Institute for Training and Research, we are building a training and certification program for those who wish to join the ACS. More information on these programs will be forthcoming as material is released. Environment and Climate Change Canada, or ECCC, discontinued their can-worn weather spotting program early last year, but the need for such a service is greater now more than ever. In partnership with those who created the program at the very beginning, RAC has begun to redevelop the program in-house with an eye of integrating it into our field organization. Anyone interested in being part of this process should send email to canwarn@rac.ca. The Rogers outage of July 2022 has generated a great deal of interest in the amateur radio service and what it can do to mitigate gaps in communications infrastructure during times of need. RAC has been fielding unsolicited calls from provincial governments, non-governmental organizations, as well as inquiries from federal agencies. In order to facilitate the information security and record-keeping requirements of the ministries, agencies, and NGOs that RAC is developing relationships with, we will make use of our new Google Workspace environment and move all field organization, ACS, and ARES officials onto that platform over the next 12 months to ensure that all volunteers are able to collaborate effectively internally and with stakeholders. RAC has spent a great deal of time and effort in getting youth involved in amateur radio this year. RAC brought on a new youth coordinator in Phil Gebhardt, Victor Echo 3 Alpha Charlie Kilo, who we are looking forward to working with to further develop RAC's youth programs and activities. Thanks to the efforts of Atlantic Director Al Penny, Victor Oscar 1 November Oscar, students in Nova Scotia will be able to apply for high school credits for taking RAC's basic and advanced courses and obtaining their amateur radio certifications, 1/2 credit for their basic and 1/2 credit for their advanced. I'm going to pause right there and ask for a round of applause for Al Penny. We have already begun to reach out to other provincial and territorial education ministries where RAC hopes to replicate the success of this initiative in Nova Scotia across the country. RAC participated in the Canada-wide Science Fair in Edmonton, Alberta this past May. Hundreds of students were exposed to amateur radio, with many asking questions and showing genuine interest in what we do. I would like to thank Stephen Lee, Victor Alpha 3 Sierra Golf Lima, Regional Director for Alberta, the Northwest Territories, and the Nunavut Territory, as well as all of the other volunteers who took time to put together a program and attend the events. Finally, RAC hosted Region 2's Youth on the Air Camp 2023 at Carleton University this past July. 30 young radio amateurs from Canada, the United States, South America, and Europe got together for 7 days of amateur radio fun and camaraderie. I would like to thank all the volunteers involved in planning and executing this event, and I would also like to announce that RAC will be hosting Yoda Camp 2024 at a new location yet to be determined. RAC provides many services to the radio amateur community, and we do it as a nearly 100% volunteer-run organization. If you are a member of RAC, I thank you for your support and confidence. If you are interested in becoming part of the future of amateur radio in Canada, I ask that you send an email to volunteer@rac.ca to see what opportunities there are for you. If you are not a member, I urge you to join RAC by going to the website and signing up today. Your support will mean the continued defense and development of the hobby and service that we've all come to love. And that ends my statement. I would like to ask for a motion to adopt the President's report as it has been presented. I'll take it from Nathaniel Senf, Victor Alpha 7, Sierra Fox Fox. Do I have a second? Jeff Dale, Victor Alpha 3, India Sierra Papa. Please stand by. I've entered a poll in YouTube. You guys can go ahead. If I may, I can ask all in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, if any? Thank you. I'll let the poll run for another couple of minutes, seconds. And we'll end the poll. 15 votes, unanimous yes, the motion carries. Thank you very much. Next slide, please. All right, financial statements. So part of this meeting is to show the membership what's going on with finances, and for that, I will pass the podium over to our very capable treasurer, Margaret Tidman, Victor Echo 3, Victor X-ray in November. Victor Alpha 3.
All right, I'm a little more low-tech than Phil. I just have some papers here, but next slide, please. Oh, that's kind of small. So can we zoom in on the balance sheet quickly? Okay, so we ended at 2022. Actually, sorry, I should say good afternoon to everybody. We ended 2023 with $175,000 in cash, $152,000 in GICs. As Phil suggested, we are very comfortable financially, and the future is looking good. Most of the stuff on the balance sheet as well is just pretty standard things. Other than the cash, I just wanted to go over that one. The internally restricted funds that are identified there was something the board had agreed to, I'm not really sure how many years ago, possibly 20 years ago, as a reserve to hold in case anything happened. Those funds would be used to pay back any deferred revenue that we had from clubs or from memberships. Down accounts receivable, pretty standard. Most of that is the insurance plan that started in November for the year of 2023. Those have been collected. Can you go towards the bottom section? Thank you. Accounts receivable, or accounts payable and accrued liabilities are, most of that is for the November and December TCA issue, which have also now been paid. Then the bottom section there with the deferred revenue as identified, we have deferred revenue for 2023, 24, and 25, as well as the club insurance and affiliated club amounts. And there's also $3,000 of that was for the basic course, which started in January. That's about it for that one there. Can we go to the income statement? All right, so one of the things that's new on there this year is something called grants. So what that item is the grants that we issue for scholarships through the Ottawa Community Foundation, which are donations that are given to RAC as directed donations. They're identified on there, but you will also see in the bottom section that there's a grants item that is the expenses going out, so it's just a matter of the money coming in and the money going out to be represented on our statement. It has no impact financially for us. Membership, sorry, I should have one of these in front of me because that's kind of small. Bear with me a moment. The memberships has gone down a little bit. Phil identified earlier our numbers. They have dropped a tiny bit. We're trying to correct that by welcoming all of you to join us if you're not already a member. Magazine advertising was down a little bit. We had lost a few, I think Yesu was the big advertiser that we had lost in 2022. Course revenue, as Phil had suggested earlier as well, we have a lot of success with our online courses through Alpenny for the basic course. DARF is the same as the grants. We recognize the revenue coming in at the time that the expenses are used to send our delegate to those meetings. So after all of those items, we had $344,728 worth of revenue. Can we go down to the bottom? In the expenses sections, I'll just touch on the big ones. The cost of sales and royalties are for royalties for the the club that hosts the course for the basic course, as well as commissions for the ham study guide. DARF I already identified. The next big item was the grants that I also explained. The insurance program is just money in, money out for the club insurances. Magazine production, this is for the actual production of the magazine as well as the shipping and the printing. And the next big one, which is wages, which would be our office manager. All of that told, we have $329,903 worth of expenses, giving us a reserve or a surplus of $14,825 at the end of 2022. And that's all I have. Do I have any questions? Nothing heard.
Thank you very much, Margaret. Before I continue, are there any questions on the financial statements from our online audience? Please come now. Well, it's not 90 seconds, but it's yeah? I'll tell you what, I'll continue, and if I see anyone come up, I'll stop. Okay, so well, what I'll do, I could tell a joke, but I'm scared to. Al? No, never mind. Don't. All right, I haven't heard anything, so we'll move on. And actually, before we move on, what I'll do, I will start a poll. So if there are no questions, I would like to ask for a motion to accept the audited financial statements as displayed for the year 2022. If a RAC member would make that motion, please. I'll take it, sir. Sir, what's your name again? Scott Wood, Victor Echo 1, Queen Delta moves. Do I have a seconder? John Bignell, Victor Echo 1, JNV. Juliet Mike Victor Echo 1, Juliet Mike Bravo seconds. Is there any further discussion required? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your hand, please. Opposed, if any? I'll hang out for a while you folks on YouTube. The movers for minutes of last year? So who made, so let's go back. Who made the motion to adopt the minutes from last year? I think that was That was Barry Brosseau, VE3SLD. Seconded by it was Brian, VA1CC? VA1 Charlie. Okay, we'll end the poll on, so we are unanimous in here, and then the poll on YouTube. Survey says 21 votes, all yes. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Next slide, please. So the next item of business is we need to officially appoint an auditor for this year's books. And I would like to ask for a motion from the floor to appoint Baker Tilly Ottawa as auditors for the 2023 fiscal year. Al Penny, Victor Ocean 1, November Ocean. Do I have a seconder? Actually, Stephen Lee, Victor Alpha 6, Sierra Golf Lima. Thank you. Stand by. All right. I've put a poll up there for you guys on YouTube. You guys can go ahead. Is any discussion required? Nothing heard. All in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, if any? Thank you. I'll hang out and let these guys. All right, online with 20 votes, 100% yes. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next slide, please. So as this is the end of the official meeting, I would ask a member to move to adjourn. Nathaniel Senf, Victor Alpha 7, Sierra November Fox, second by Jeff Dale, Victor Alpha 3, India Sierra Papa. Stand by. I've put the poll out there for YouTube. You can vote. Any discussion required? Nothing heard. All in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, if any? Thank you. I'll stand by for YouTube. Closing the poll online, 18 votes, all yes. Motion carries unanimously. I will call the meeting adjourned at 4:34 p.m. Atlantic Daylight Time. Thank you. So that ends the official portion of the AGM. I'm now standing before the firing squad. If anyone here has any questions about RAC and anything going on, our activities over the past year, anything you'd like to say. Same thing for our YouTube audience. I have the screen right in front of me, so if you do send anything in chat, I haven't been paying attention really. I haven't seen any questions. I've just seen everyone listing their membership details, and I thank you for that. So if you're online and you want to ask a question, go ahead. If you're in the room and you'd like to ask a question, I stand before you. I mean, did I do that good a job? There are no questions? Yeah. So Chris Smart, thank you for the great work so far toward a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive RAC. I noticed accessibility improvements when I renewed my membership online recently. What is being done to allow hams who are blind to access the digital version of TCA? Thanks, Chris, for that. As a board, we've discussed this. It is actually on topic to be discussed at the next board meeting. It has been a topic of discussion. I'm hoping that sometime by the end of the year we can detail what we can do. Just for those of you who don't know, RAC has a paper magazine and we have an electronic magazine. What we're trying to do is make the electronic magazine as accessible as possible. But the way that it's been formatted thus far, to get it to work with the reader for someone who's blind, is a little bit difficult. So we have been researching suppliers and getting quotes to figure out how much it'll cost to change our template so that so when we make the magazine and publish the electronic copy, it can be easily read by someone who can, with a reader. So that's what that question refers to, and it's something that we are working on and hoping to have an answer for by the end of this year, by the end of 2023. Any other questions? All right. I would like to thank everyone for having, that's a thank you from Doug Stevenson. Thank you, and we're happy to do it. You mentioned both ARES and ACS in your address. Is ARES an ongoing program, or is ACS replacing it completely? Jason, you've got a microphone back there. Would you like to add an answer to that question? Jason Tremblay is Victor Echo 3 Juliet X-Ray Tango. He's RAC's Community Services Officer. He's at the booth making sure that you can hear me, but he can talk to you from his microphone as soon as he turns it on.
Hi, thank you. I hope everybody can hear me all right.
Yep, 5-9.
So we have had ARES across Canada for 30 years. And there are a lot of groups out there that are very effective in their areas. If they choose to remain ARES by name, by activities, that's fine. ACS, Auxiliary Communication Services, it is designed as a training and augmentation service for NGOs and emergency management. So in the future, we may see a full change over to ACS, but for 2024, we're still looking at local groups being accepted as ARES. Until the pilot program is completed, we're not looking at fully abolishing the ARES name until about 2025. So those of you online, if you want to be referred to as ARES, that is completely acceptable by Radio Amateurs of Canada, and we are welcoming in the new Auxiliary Communication Service.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it. Any other questions? So, I would like to thank the Halifax Amateur Radio Club for hosting RAC. This year. RAC has been trying to dovetail on other events of significance across the country. Flea markets, large conventions, celebrations of milestones like this one, so that we can be more visible to our members from coast to coast. And which is gives us the opportunity to see the people that we are supporting and to hear from you directly, and then take what we learned from you back to our meeting room, whether it's physical or virtual, and try to do our best to make it even better. So I'd like to thank the Halifax Club for hosting us, and I look forward to speaking to some of you tonight at the gala at 8 o'clock on what I think about the future of amateur radio. Thank you very much. 7-3, have a great day.